On the home page of our website, we have a row here that's not in use. That row normally contains the breadcrumb. And if you go take a look at, say, the About page, you see that the breadcrumb is located here inside of this row. On the home page, I didn't want the breadcrumb to show because you already know that you're on the home page. There's not a lot of point in showing the breadcrumb. But if you were to view the source for this particular web page, and you were to scroll on down the list here, past the navigation bar, down here, you will see that we have a div with a class of row fluid, a div with a class of span 12, and nothing, followed by /div/div. That is the breadcrumb right here that's showing up on your home page. This may also be pushing your content down a little bit off the navigation bar, which, depending on whether you like the way it looks or not, that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. Wouldn't it be great, though, if we could tell Joomla to only write that row in place if we do, in fact, have a breadcrumb for that row? Otherwise, don't write anything into the website. That way we don't have that little extra bit of markup. Well, fortunately, that is completely possible inside of Joomla, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. So, if you start by going to Dreamweaver, we're going to switch over to your index.php file. And if you scroll on down the page here to around line 50, you will find the row here that's associated with the breadcrumbs. So you see that there's our div with a class of row fluid, the div with a class of span 12, the breadcrumb module /div/div. We would like to surround that whole entire thing with some kind of code that will just have that row being written if their breadcrumbs are even existing. Now, this is actually fairly straightforward to do, and the code is located inside of the Protostar template. I've also put it in your exercise files, so just a bit of code that we're going to use so that you have it and you can refer to it. So if you take a look inside of the Protostar index.php file, and if you scroll on down this index.php file, down to line 148, you'll see this little bit of code that we're going to borrow here. So right here around this div with a class of navigation, there's a little starting bit of code on line 148, and it says PHP, which is the starting PHP tag, if this count module's position 1. And then it has a bunch of stuff, and then it says on line 152, PHP and if. What does this mean? Well, that line on 148 means if there are modules assigned to position 1 for this template, then go ahead and do whatever comes after this until you hit the end if. That was the end of what you should do if there are modules assigned to position 1. If there are no modules assigned to position 1, what will happen is, as this web page is generated, we will skip from line 147 right on down to somewhere around line 153, which is the start of this banner module. The banner module will, of course, turn into HTML at that point, and that HTML will start there at line 153. So I'm going to grab this little bit of code right here on line 148. I'm going to Control or Command C to copy that, and I'm going to switch back to my index.php. And here, just before what was line 50, I'm going to paste that code in place. And then, so I have my div with a class of row fluid, my div with a class of span 12, /div/div. So then right here, I'm going to add the other bit of code, which is this end if right here. Copy that and paste that in place. But I don't want this to be position 1. I don't even have a position 1 inside of my template. Now, this is valid code. It'll run just fine in Joomla, and nothing will ever happen because I have no position 1 in this template. So I need to change this position 1. Don't get rid of the single quotes, but change position 1 to say breadcrumbs. So in other words, if there is anything in the module position of breadcrumbs, then go ahead and write in the surrounding HTML markup that we need, as well as the breadcrumb module. And if nothing is present at that particular point, then we'll go from line 49 right on down to line 57, and we'll start it on the content. So I'm going to save this, file save. And now if I go into my web browser on the front end of Joomla here and I hit refresh, I see that my content just bumped up the page a little bit here. That's because that row that was there for the breadcrumbs is no longer present. And if you view the source for this page, you'll see that that is the case. As you scroll on down here past the navigation bar, you will find that just after the navigation bar ends, we start right in with the row that contains our content and our testimonials here on the home page. But yet, if you go to the About page of the website, that row is in fact present, as are the breadcrumb modules, as you can see here. So this little bit of code inside of Joomla is incredibly helpful if a module is present code here, and you can make great use of that on your Joomla websites as a wonderful way of including or eliminating extra code from your page where it's needed or not needed.